Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar, Safeguarding Against Threats, How Fraud Impacts Your Sales Pipeline. In a volatile environment, it's important to ensure you are maximizing the value of your marketing efforts. Whether your firm is facing economic headwinds or constantly battling against constricting regulations, you need to know how to protect and maintain your sales pipeline. So how do you ensure your outbound campaigns are safe from the obvious and more insidious intrusions that can disrupt your revenue? The first step is understanding what you are up against. Today, we have two panelists that will help you better understand the risks to your sales pipeline and develop a plan to protect and defend against the myriad of risks that are out there. Today, we're joined by Anura co-founder and CEO, Rich Kahn, and Convoso's Chief Revenue Officer, Meg Mananian. Thank you both for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So a little bit about our panelists. For the last 3 decades, Rich Kahn has been fighting against ad fraud in his own digital marketing firms and as head of Anura. Anura is dedicated to protecting ad budgets around the globe from fraud. Rich is a recognized innovator in the fraud detection space and leads the fight against the growing $120 billion ad fraud problem. Thanks for joining us today, Rich.
Thank you.
And today, Rich is joined by Meg Mananian, Chief Revenue Officer at Convoso. Meg is a results-oriented leader spearheading revenue strategies to drive growth and optimize sales pipelines. She oversees the sales and customer success teams for Convoso, and Meg's career includes several years of experience in public accounting, establishing her own consulting firm, and pivotal positions in the technology and healthcare sectors. She has been a key component of the success at Convoso since joining as head of operations in 2019. Thank you for being here today, Meg.
Thank you for having me. Super excited.
So we'd love to hear from the attendees throughout this conversation. We've opened the Q&A section of the webinar, so please drop any questions you may have for the panelists in there. And as always, we will provide a recording of this webinar to all the registrants within the next few days. So with that, a little bit of housekeeping, I think we can get started. So Meg, for the uninitiated, could you give us kind of a high-level overview of what Convoso does and how your firm is uniquely positioned to address this idea of safeguarding against threats that can impact a sales pipeline?
Sure. First, thank you for everything. And thank you to Rich for inviting me to this webinar. So just to kick it off, what does Convoso do? Well, we're known for being the #1 leading outbound dialing software. We connect calls very quickly. Speed to lead is what we are known for. And what we're also known for is that we want to ensure that a lot of our prospects and as well as customers are set up for success when it comes to compliance. We have a lot of different tools within our software to help with TCPA regulations. And of course, partnering with great customer vendors like Anura to make sure that leads are coming into our system as being scrubbed and cleaned at that same time. So not only that, we definitely help our customers close more deals, and our technology can help support many aspects of the industry to make sure that we are compliant.
Thank you. And Rich, as a clear leader in the fraud detection space, Anura has been focused on quality and accuracy when it comes to traffic. How does your solution complement what Convoso does?
Well, it's as you get leads into the system and your stuff you're about to call, you want to confirm that they're legitimate leads. Nothing's more frustrating to somebody that's making those calls than to get somebody on the phone who swears up and down they didn't fill out the form, or get a TCPA violation, or, call the number 10, 15, 20 times before realizing, okay, I'm not getting these people on the phone, probably because they didn't fill out the form. So it helps the whole ecosystem. Like, these technologies work hand in hand together in order to deliver the client a better ROI and a better understanding as to what's going on with less risk in the compliance side.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And can you guys both kind of help our attendees better understand the implications of fraud in their campaigns? What are kind of the short-term and long-term issues and implications that you see of not properly handling either fraudulent clicks or leads that get into your ecosystem?
Meg, you can go first.
Okay, no problem. So in short, yeah, it leads to wasted resources and decreased performance. In long term, it really undermines the data integrity Convoso is known for having a plethora of different informations and reports that you can run. So if you don't have the right data integrity, it really erodes the decision making as a business. Most importantly, it does take away the trust with the lead source. So having the right handling for fraud tools like Anura's will maintain effective campaigns.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of negative things that happen to somebody if they're dealing with bad, bad data, whether it's visitors, impressions, leads, phone, numbers that are getting pumped into a system to dial out to. I mean, you're looking at, marketing wasted spend because you're spending money to get those leads one way or another, whether you're buying them, or you're driving them in yourself, and then you're pushing them into your back end. Once it gets past that initial test, there's a lot of cost and resources, like Megan was saying, that you end up having to spend all to find out down the road it was a bad lead. You have brand reputation issues. You have TCPA violations if you're making these phone calls. And it's funny because the people that are selling like if you're not generating the leads yourself, because you got a mix of people. Some people generate their own leads and then put them into the dialer. Other people are buying them. And Meg probably knows more of the mix of those type of people. But when you're dumping all that data into a dialing system and start those dials, the person that's making those dials, the actual person that's using the system, is the one on the hook for a TCPA violation. And since that's the fastest growing class action lawsuit type in this country, everybody's watching that, especially with all the new regulations coming out by the government and try to regulate all this stuff and try to stop, robocalls, which is still not properly defined. It's combating all that. So having the right tools in place, having the right tech stack in place minimizes that risk and those losses.
You know what? I kind of want to add to that because I think you highlighted a lot of key things. So within Convoso, there's different tools that you can add to make sure that you're compliant. Very important to get the right data source in 100%, making sure that it's opt-in data. But we do have certain features like our state tracker to ensure that if you're calling within a state and there's calling times that you shouldn't be calling into, that is pre-set up within the system. So once you set it up, you're good to go. Second is that we've spent so much time in our compliance section of onboarding, making sure the KYC, your DNC policy, your anything that you would need to make sure that as a company you're set up for success when it comes to compliance. So all of those things are needed to make sure that any campaign that's set up is set up to dial out and ease of mind and making sure that your brand is trusted. All those things are very much hand in hand work together.
Cool.
Yeah, Rich, I know we talk a lot about accuracy, and what can you talk to us about false positives in this environment of detecting fraud? Like, how does Anura minimize the impact of flagging potentially valid leads as fraud?
Well, again, speak to a lot of different customers that have tested a lot of different solutions in the marketplace. So a lot of the data that I hear is from people that I'm talking to. And I've already calculated at this point, I've done over 1,000 demos, taken hundreds of people through our product, gotten them set up, tested, and I get a lot of useful feedback from clients. So what I've kind of comprised based on all the feedback I've gotten over the last 7 years of selling this as a standalone solution is that the average fraud detection solution in the market has a 15% false positive rate, which means mismarking real people as fraud. So if you do that on a calculation of there's 25% of all traffic ends up being fraudulent and 15% that's being mismarked by another company is real traffic, because again, most of fraud solutions are trying to vet out themselves and say, hey, look at all the fraud that I caught, but a lot of them work behind a black box. So unless you know your data, like in the lead generation space, the call space, you get somebody on the phone, swears up and down there to fill out a form, that's probably fraud. So you can human verify your data, which, in some marketing channels you can, in some marketings you can't, but in the lead gen space, it's great because for a fact, based on call disposition reports, what's real and what's fake. So we're spending a lot of our time in the lead gen space because it's performance marketing. And we believe that because of the accuracy of our solution, that we outshine all competitors in this space. So again, if the average from what I'm hearing is a 15% false positive rate, that means 1 in every 26 people that you scan using one of our competitors on average is being tossed out, and it's a real person. So that ultimately negatively impacts your buyer's journey, which is the exact opposite. And it'll cost you money, cost you potential retargeting, marketing, cost you potential referrals coming from that. I mean, just there's a lot of waste behind that. I've even gotten several reports from a competitor that I'll keep nameless, because I'm not like that. That has over 50% false positives. They're a very inexpensive solution, and people don't realize how that's damaging their company, how it's hurting their company. Because if you're marking 50% of the stuff you find as fraud and they're real people, that just hurts yourself. And I'll use an example. One of our writers was buying a product on a site that she's used to typically buying from. I love this story. And for some reason, it wouldn't let her buy. And she's clicking around. She tried different browsers. And at the end of the day, she realized they think she's a bot. They won't let her make the purchase. So what did she do? She went to a competitor and bought the product, and probably will be shopping that competitor moving forward. So just think of that one person and multiply that by tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that you're dealing with on a monthly basis. How does those false positives hurt? And that's where it really hurts is the overall brand and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And Meg, I know accuracy and quality is important for Convoso. Can you talk a little bit about how well, I guess we'll call it inaccurate fraud flagging affects the clients that you work with, and how do you guys work to try to mitigate that?
Yeah. So Rich, thank you. That was a great explanation. So once that whole journey, you buy all those leads and they're ready to go and you upload it within a system. Of course, you're going to use Convoso. What else would you use? But you upload it within Convoso. There are ways that a call can go through, but not picked up. So let me explain how does this happen? So when a consumer gets a phone call, when it's labeled scam likely or fraud likely, you're not going to pick up. I certainly don't pick up. I know many people do not pick up. But here's what happens. The telecom carriers assign these fraud labels based on algorithms, which can be inaccurate and don't take into account the consumer may have actually provided consent to be contacted, kind of like an example that Rich kind of gave. So if your company calls are being inaccurately labeled as scam, what is it going to affect? It's going to affect your contact rate. You're not going to get enough people on the phone. And of course, it's going to lead to your call center not having enough conversations throughout the day. So what do you do at that point in time? You need to be using a solution that can effectively manage your DID reputation. So that's how we kind of look to see if there's a false positive happening on our side. Convoso has built our newest product that we launched about, I want to say 2 weeks ago after LeadsCon. It's called Clear Color ID Pro. So CCID Pro as for short, which takes a comprehensive approach to help our customers combat scam or flagged numbers. Most importantly, also blocked numbers. So one, we take our customers' DIDs or list of numbers and we register all of them. Not only do we do that, but we have a wonderful dashboard that helps our customers monitor to see which one of these numbers are being flagged as spam or fraud likely. And then based on that, you can make effective decisions what to do next with those numbers. 3, we have prevention. So each number you can have, for example, set up how much you would like to dial per number. So if it hits that cap, we do rotate them with a different number. Or if it is flagged as a scam likely, it is removed from the asset list and is put to rest. And last but not least, we do remediate any of those numbers that have been flagged. So this kind of gives you the ease of mind that all those leads that you're purchasing, using a tool like Anura to make sure that it's been scrubbed and it is right person to contact, then using a tool like Convoso with one of our features like Clear Color ID Pro to ensure that all calls are getting collected. And of course, at the end of the day, every company wants to make their ROI and make sales happen. So that's how we help with that.
I want to bounce off that real quick because interesting to tap onto that. We generate our own leads in house. Again, the number of leads we generate and scale for lead generation is small because it's just we're going after B2B enterprise class clients and we're driving in maybe 100 different leads a month coming into our system through the different mechanisms that we're doing. So, and when we're processing those, it's, hey, somebody raised their hand, said, I want more information. I want to talk to an expert. I want to do whatever. They want us to reach out to them. So these are inbound leads. Of course, we use Anura to scrub all the data so that they're legit. And so again, we drink our own Kool-Aid here. And then what was interesting is I had called a friend of mine in this space talking about something, and then I texted him right behind it because he didn't answer. And that's just using my MO. I called and then I followed it with a quick text to say, hey, by the way, when you get a chance, let me know when you're available so we can jump on a call. And he goes, oh, that was you? Your number came through as spam likely. Now we don't do but maybe a few hundred calls a month at most. So it's nowhere near the volume of people that would be licensing a Convoso platform, right? I mean, if somebody came to you and wanted to do 100 calls a month, they're probably not the right customer for you. But you guys are doing thousands or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands or millions of calls for depending on the size of the client. And could you imagine just I'm having that issue with maybe a 200-300 phone calls a month? So if you're not checking that stuff using a tool that like Convoso offers and make sure it's clean, you're going to have a hard time getting people on the phone. So again, they work hand in hand very well.
Very much so. And just real quickly, I just want to touch base on this is that I've been at the company for now 7 years, and throughout those 7 years, I've never been in this industry of lead gen, but I can definitely at this point in time say is that you need tools that are helping you make the sale at the end, at the bottom of the funnel. We released our first version of Clear Caller ID. I wasn't even a pro, was first version of it in 2019. And I think it was right before COVID, and we had so many numbers just flagged. The algorithm was crazy. It was just flagging anything that if you were even my own number, like Rich was saying, my number, we use our tool just to see how things are going. But with that, we started to see how it's affecting the contact rate, how important it is to even have a tool like a Clear Caller ID. Of course, I wouldn't name our competitors either, but what I would say is different is that if you have a tool all in one, having Convoso not only for the dialing, but also for the cleaning of the numbers and omni-channel communication, it helps the decision maker who's running the business to make the right informative decisions at the end of the day. So it's been an evolution. It's very important to have, and then knowing the data is very much needed to make effective decisions.
Yeah. We do have a question from the audience too. They were interested in hearing a little bit more about how your technologies work together or maybe integrate. And I know you guys don't typically like to give specific examples of clients, but are there situations where you can talk about maybe in a hypothetical that would show the best way that things could flow using both technologies together?
Yeah.
So typically the way we work with clients that use the two of us, is essentially we start at the top of the funnel, like before the lead makes it into the system, before you start calling it. So it depends. If you're generating themselves, there's a certain type of integration. If you're buying them through ping posts, if you're getting them, handed to you in any fashion, there's a way to integrate our software to identify if that's real or fake. So we play at the very top of the funnel for most people, especially since we're charging fractions of a penny per record to scan. Basically scanning the record to make sure, yes, this lead was filled out by a real person. Then we're done, pass it off to Convoso to now process the rest of the data. Is it on a DNC list? Is it, who's going to call it? Is it this right time to call it? And then it's fired off to, a rep who's going to actually physically make that call. Because again, from the time that lead is generated to the time it gets called is important. And you don't want to delay anything there. And none of the technologies between the two of us slow anything down. So it's super fast so that you can still get the right information, process the data correctly, and then call it confidently, knowing that, hey, I'm calling somebody who literally just filled out a form. Because one of the things that we do see from the fraud side is we see some of the more advanced levels of fraud. They're using human fraud forms. So they get around all your captchas and all your basic bot traps and stuff like that. And then they fill out the form using aged lead data. So they're trying to recycle old leads that they're buying for pennies and a dollar and put them into new ones. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have clients that are calling on them ask two questions. One, typically, when the calling script is something like, hey, I'm just calling you based on the information you filled out on how to get solar for your house or something to that effect. So the person confirms, yeah, I filled out a form. Tell me about your offer. The other question sometimes I ask them to ask, either make it into one question or ask it a second question. When did you fill out the form? Because we know that age lead data, compliance is a major issue, especially with the new rules coming into effect. That's going to create all kinds of issues on compliance. You want to make sure you have compliancy. But second is the conversion ratio of an age lead is way less than a fresh lead that was just generated. So it looks like a real lead. It's real information. They filled out a form at some time in the past, but again, it's not the type of lead you want to call. So again, starting at the beginning of the funnel, making sure that it's a legitimate lead that was just filled out by a real person, and passing it off to Convoso to do the balance. And if you have anything else to add on that, Meg, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, well said. So once that's all done and you feel comfortable about the lead being coming into the dialer, what happens with Convoso is that we are known for the speed to lead. We connect calls very quickly. So it does matter which tool you use. Once you get into that decision making of which product to use, with Convoso, you can really optimize your outbound outreach strategy. We're able to prioritize certain leads coming from certain vendors. You can put your hot leads to be dialed in first. With our workflow automation, it will make it easier which lead will route to your best agents or certain agents in certain states. So you want to be, again, compliant. There's certain questions you need to ask. That can be done within our tool. You're able to really customize the strategy to ensure that not only are you providing the right set of leads to the right agents to dial, but also making sure that you're compliant. And that can all be done through our workflow automation and, of course, straight tracker. You can build that into each lead sources. Most importantly, kind of how Rich said, is that they are sitting at the top of the funnel. We're at the bottom of the funnel. Once the deal is closed won, you can also run a lot of reports with Convoso to see which lead provider is providing you the best leads. And then, continue doing more business with them and which ones are not. And if it is your age data or hot data, really understand what's happening in the data source to optimize your outbound calling strategy.
I know we've touched on this twice so far on this webinar, but can you go a little in depth, Meg, on the speed to lead approach, or is that a specific product that you guys offer? How does that work?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So speed to lead. Well, how does it work? Well, I think one part of it is the technology. So I'll start with the top and the biggest thing. Convoso has been around for, I want to say 22 years now, very long time. But in those years, we rebuilt the product twice. The second time we rebuilt it was based on our own proprietary code and software, which means that we really spent a lot of our efforts, of course, money into making sure that the technology is able to deliver its whole speed to lead. We have our DX5 engine, and that's the engine where we can concurrently make as many calls as possible. Matter of fact, I just found out from our Chief Product Officer, Bobby, one of the co-owners, that we place over 1 billion calls a day. That's a lot of calls. So as a technology provider, we are able to do that. We're able to connect all these calls as quickly as possible. Second is that we have a lot of different features within the product to make it speed to lead. Like I said earlier, you can set up campaigns with prioritization levels. You can really route to your best agents to ensure that your best agents are able to close those leads. We have our different reports, like a list conversion report, that really helps with understanding what's happening each list and where it's being dialed. We have so many different tools within our system to really help you make rightful decisions. Not only that, we have dashboards, and of course our team on our side, our customer success managers, our support team, that if you do see a dip of not understanding what's happening in your contact rate, we have very knowledgeable team members who can really delve into your own data to help you make those decisions, to say, hey, what's going on here? How can I make my lead get to the dialer as quickly as possible? And of course, closing that deal.
Hold on a second. I got held up on that 1 billion dials a day.
Yeah. Yep.
How many reps are you supporting to get to that number? I used to be, let's put it this way. I worked my way through college telemarketing, and I used to do 160 dials in a 4-hour shift, but that was, the old phone on the head and banging a phone calls through a yellow page book. So I'm just baffled, because I just said, okay, let's say it's 300 calls a day. That's 3 million reps.
Yeah, $1 billion. Yes, 1 billion. No, I know. I just found out that the other day when we were on another call. It's one of our BPO customers, and they do have a lot of agents on the dialer. But the point is that we're able to do that. So if you are thinking, can Convoso handle that kind of business? Yes, we can. And for us, that is scalable. We have our DX5 engine that really supports this growth and being able to really push the dialer And I think, again, I've been here for 6 years, so I've seen the evolution as a company. We were, I want to say, pretty small, and now we're pretty large. So I've seen that evolution of year-over-year growth and to where I'm at now. And one of the biggest kudos to, I would say, Bobby and Fee, who's our CTO and our CPO, was in 2019. I think everything happened in 2019. But anyways, in 2019, where we were able to push the dialer. And I think at that point, they hit some sort of record of number of calls out. I don't remember the number, but it really elevated us to go to the next level. And that's when we started really dabbling into the AI and how can we make our, do more calls with AI. And that scaling really helped us to get to where we're at now with 1 billion calls.
It's funny because at our biggest spike in traffic, just because we had a couple of big users that had just an enormous amount of traffic, we were scanning 5 billion visitors a day. And, and again, they're all digital footprints, so it's quick, and their transactions are very short, very quick and easy. But when you're doing 1 billion calls, you got to have millions and millions of calls that are being answered that now have to be processed by a person, right? So I was just saying, it was pretty impressive to see 1 billion calls at a spike. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, you should see their workflows. Their workflows are insane. They have different workflows for different triggers of events, And I think that's where Convoso also is able to really highlight what we do best is our workflows. Rich can have its own workflow within different lead sources and as well as myself. So imagine that times thousands of agents. So it's crazy.
Yeah, that is a lot. Now you mentioned integrating AI into your infrastructure, Meg. How important is machine learning and AI to Convoso's either existing operations or as kind of what you guys look at towards the future?
Well, I think AI is here to stay. It's everywhere. Matter of fact, we were just talking about how you wanted to download something to help you pay attention to where to look at. AI is going to be within every workflow that we have. Even at Convoso, me as an employee working here, we do have AI for other things, especially note-taking. But for our consumers or prospects or current clients, we do have our newest feature, which is called Voso.ai. It's the second version of it. Like I said, back in 2019, we had our first version. It was called Conversational AI, CAI. And then this is our real AI version, because that one was an if-then statement, and this is actual conversation and smart enough to make decisions. Where this to me is enhancing the workflows. As a call center, you may have humans being able to answer calls, but of course your team has to go home and they have to attend to their family. That's when you can use AI. We have a lot of customers using it for callbacks or appointment settings. This can really automate. It can elevate the morale of the team. They don't have to do mundane tasks. You can then capture some of those leads that are coming in after hours and make sure that the next day you're able to call them back. Voso is really effective in kind of really connecting the day-to-days and then maybe at night, and then being able to make that into a team effort to ensuring that the lead is able to get a call back or get that appointment set so you can close that deal. So it really is optimizing the efficiency. It is helping making sure that we can build it into the workflow. And then last but not least, with the analytics, you can use that to really look to see what your data is doing. What kind of words are they saying back, or how are customers saying no, different languages, Spanish speaking, all of that can be a AI-powered analytics tool that you can use. And I don't know if I'm even allowed to say this right now, but we do have something in our product roadmap that could bring QA into our workflows. But till we do, we have great partners like Balto that we definitely do highlight that you can have quality assurance as well as, are they hitting the right words, especially in the health insurance companies? Are they really saying what they need to say? And we do partner with them as well.
And conversely, Rich, where do you see AI becoming a bigger threat in the fraud space? Like, are you seeing changes in the way that are the things that you guys detect when you're seeing fraudulent clicks? Yeah,
so AI has been around for decades. And in the fraud space, probably more so in the last 5 or 10 years. And, we're just hearing lots about it now, but we've done we're constantly tracking new levels of fraud that are coming through, and the iterations are happening faster and faster. And I think that's in part for AI is helping. Like right now, you can go onto the dark web and buy a piece of software called Fraud GPT, which will actually write bots for you, and that gets smarter and smarter, every minute of every day, because that's how AI learns. It does make it more and more difficult. So where once you'd have, you might go to your CTO and say, hey, we have this fraud problem. Can you solve it? Because you're the technical guy in the company. Now you got to remember, most CTOs have an overworkload schedule, right? They're swamped. And now you're adding another massive task to their thing to say, hey, you need to look at this. And early in the past, they could whip together something that might solve some of it, simple IP block list or, basic things that you can do. They could have thrown up CAPTCHAs, which, I think it's 30% of the people, humans fail CAPTCHAs. So it adds friction. There's lots of little things that they could have done with AI on the grow. They don't have time for it anymore. They either have to dedicate a team. And I've said, if you're going to do this, you got to dedicate a couple of people that understand technology and fraud, that are going to focus, build, and manage the code base and continue to stay on top of fraud, because we're seeing new fraud threats every week. You're going to have a data pool to store all the data. You're going to have to make sure you're running through that using some machine learning or AI to understand what's going on with the data, to keep up with it. Because if you're processing billions of records a day, you need to go through that data looking for anomalies. And when you start adding up the costs to really do it right inside your company, and you're going to have to do it right sooner or later, because with AI growing on that threat effect, it's getting harder and harder to defend. Or you can hire a company like us. That's all we do, right? It's the same thing. Is it cheaper to build or buy? And both our technologies, like I said, just listening to what Meg's talking about, their company's building. Now, granted, if I'm a company doing 1 million calls a month, does it make sense for me to build my own dialer? No, because I'm guaranteeing they've spent millions upon millions of dollars getting to a point where they are today, and having data from hundreds or thousands of clients to be able to see what their needs are and what works, so they can perfect it, make it work for everybody's every situation. And then when you look at the licensing fee, it's like, it's a joke, right? It's so immaterial compared to what you're doing. Same with us. Our cost for service is less than the cost of one single resource on your side, so it becomes cheaper and more efficient to lease a technology like the two of us offer, versus trying to go out and build it yourself. And I'm sure, Meg, you probably have clients that said, I'm going to build it myself.
Oh yeah, they say it all the time.
Plug in Twilio, plug in a dashboard, and I'm good to go. And they realize, a year later, they call you back and say, I give up. Give me software.
I mean, no, you're absolutely right. There is a reason why we're able to connect calls quickly. It's not just the technology. We also had to work really hard to get tier 1 carriers in place, and then our routing system in place to ensure that the calls from the carriers, from our dialers to the end zone, whether calling Rich saying, hey, let's go out to lunch, is getting delivered as quickly as possible. All of that takes a lot of effort. And of course, most importantly, teamwork, getting the right members of the team together to get that vision going, and then building that product to be what it is now. Hard work.
Yes. Well, we talked about data quality, and we talked about technology integration between your two firms. Can we talk a little bit about engagement tactics? And Meg, can you talk through how Convoso actually defines what you would consider engagement, and how your team guides your clients on how to turn those leads into loyal customers?
Yeah, I'll start off by presenting the use case of one of our customers, and end zone for their prospects would be the lead. Most importantly, if you have a call center and you don't have happy employees, what happens usually to the call center manager? They are stressed out, and they look to either replace the tool that they're currently using, or come to terms to say, okay, you know what, I need to elevate it. So one is agent experience and morale. That's one of the most important things, as a call center, you need to keep your agents happy. So with Convoso, we're able to really manage your leads and listen campaigns, so you can help your agents really get the right member on the call. You don't want to burn them out by constantly picking up or pitching the product they're looking for, and then at the tail end of it, hearing they never signed up for this product, or I'm no longer interested, or this is a bot. So of course, using Anura will really help with agent morale, getting that leads really scrubbed and making sure it's the right lead to call. So that's the first one. Second is just the customer experience. You know, we had a lot of, we had this one, actually, I don't know if I should even use their name. It's a great customer. I actually really enjoy working with them. But they did use a Vici dial in the past, and they had a hone in. Oh no, this is great. You know, we know exactly what we're doing. Our agents are happy. We know we can connect calls and all of this good stuff that they always say. And then they started using Convoso. They did a trial, and I think the trial went up to be, I don't know, 3 months or so. And then they really saw that their team was really happy, meaning the agents, you know, and they grew tremendously. At that point in time, I think they only had 60 or 70 agents, and they became 200-300 agents. So that kind of shows you speed to lead, and a happy agents, you can really grow your company to the next level. So it really matters what your agents think about the system, how they're able to even process those calls. Do they even get those calls? And are they really waiting 30, 40 seconds or to a minute to receive a call? What's going on? You know, should I increase the dial level so they're able to get calls in, or should I pay attention to the drop rate? Of course, 3% is what you need to keep, but are you able to even get to that point? What's going on? Do you need to hire more people? All of that are good questions to get, and making sure that most importantly, you know, the agents that you have are happy and making calls, and they make commission, and you know, you're able to grow to the next level. So that's one way to really look at it, is from that side. Second is, of course, if I was running a team, I would need to, as a dialer manager or the VP of operations or VP of sales, I really need to understand the feedback, you know, what's going on, the reports. I should be in the reports every single day. With Convoso, like I said, we're kind of like a data-driven kind of company. We've been around for such a long time. A lot of records of calls are in there. So we have so many data points that you can run. If you're looking at a certain report, we probably have it. If we don't have it, we have great APIs to push that into your CRM so you can slice and dice the data. But with Convoso, you can set up different reports to be emailed to you or updated to you, so you can see what's happening in your data to make those effective decisions. I know I touched base on some of them already, but most importantly, you can build out a custom dashboard for your admin side of things, and looking at those KPIs day over day. What is the most important number that you're looking for? What is the threshold? All of that stuff can be built. So to help, on the flip side, the admin to get those right information in place. And then lastly, I kind of want to highlight it from our side. You know, what makes Convoso different when it comes to our prospects? You know, I'm sure people are shopping around, and we would love to have them as a client as well. With Convoso, we really tailor our onboarding process for our customers. We listen to see what tools they use, this whole ecosystem, and making sure we have the right vendors in place. And most importantly, we do like to make a lot of introductions to our partners if they do need some sort of tool, for example, Anura. But we have a great team of implementation managers, configuration specialists, our customer success team, as well as technical account managers, who really ensure they're listening to the business that you are trying to build out within Convoso. And we like to always put our best practices in place. We always make sure that you're set up for success. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to be the extension to our customers' team. So if there's anything that you're looking for to build or even evolve your campaigns, you can always rely on Convoso to make sure that you're set up for success. So that's how we treat our engagement on our side as well.
Excellent. And Rich, I know we've talked before, and you've hit on a little bit today about that, how that sort of cascading effect that Meg mentioned, when you have agents that are dialing and they're using false leads or fake leads, and the kind of issues that can cause with morale in the call center. Have you've experienced specific instances of that with your clients? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's funny. I always talked about the 4 negative impacts of bad leads because they're fraudulent. You know, it's basically loss of revenue on your marketing side, you know, call center resources, TCPA violations, and right now it's escaping me. There's one other. And I brought this up to somebody, and I was on a conversation with somebody, and we're talking, and I brought up the 4. And he turns around and says, you're missing one. I'm like, which one? He goes, company morale, you know, because and he goes, and I've seen this firsthand. This is why we're on the call, because I have my call center reps and they're getting more than I would expect, people swearing up and down, yelling and screaming at them. Why are you calling me? I didn't fill out the form. I don't know who you are. Where'd you get my information from? And they're at a point where it's like, so now you're getting beat down. And when we ran the test, it was typical 25% fraud. So 1 in 4 calls, their call center reps are getting beat down on these calls, that when they do get connected, that when they do get somebody on the phone, their morale's already shot. And he goes, so they're not going to sell as well on that next call. So what happens is they turned around, once using our software, eliminating all those bad calls. And he said there was a marked improvement on the company morale, and they were actually closing at a higher percentage. Taking out the fraud calls, they looked at their closing percentage, and then they looked at the closing percentage after using us, and they can see a significant growth in that closing ratio. And then company morale is higher because they're dealing with people. Hey, I want solar for my house. I want car insurance. Yes, I fill out the form. I want more information. And when you tie those two pieces together, like our technologies, think of it this way. I needed something for my house. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to fill out a little form. I'm going to have somebody call me back. I had some pool repair, right? So I filled out 3 forms on 3 different sites and didn't get a single phone call.
Right.
Now, I'm not on a do not call list. So I don't know why then I followed up with email, and it's like, they just don't have a process in place. But then there was another situation. I needed a generator for the house. I was buying a generator. I live in an area where I looked to the left, they got a generator. Looked to the right, they got a generator. Guess what? Probably need a generator. So I went on to a local generator site company that sold generators, installed generators. I put the form in. I hit submit, and within seconds, my phone was ringing, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." That's the kind of support as a buyer that you want. Because if that phone doesn't ring, guess what I'm doing? Going to the next guy, filling out his form, going to the next, just like I did with pool repair. 3 different companies, I filled out the forms, one right behind another. But if one of those guys called me, it would have interrupted that pattern. I would have answered the phone call. I would have taken the call. The guy would have hopefully sold me on the fact that we're the best in the area. This is what I can do for you. Yes, we're the perfect company for your company. I'm going to come down and give you an estimate. And I would have stopped. Mm-hmm. People don't realize, sometimes those leads come in, they take a while to process. And, again, you want to make sure they're real. And just to talk about that company morale, I spoke to somebody in the industry that used to work for a call center. And he says, I can't tell you how many people I fired because they said the person didn't fill out the form. Mm. And he goes, now he saw a speech of mine, and he goes, now I'm wondering, were they fraudulent? Because the people on the phone are like, listen to the call recording. They swear they didn't fill out the form. And they're like, no way. They just fill out the form when you're calling it within seconds. Like, you're not doing your job. So what does that do to people that didn't get fired yet? They're like, oh my God, you didn't fill out the form? Yeah, you fill out the form. You just didn't recognize you filled out the form. Trust me, you fill out the form. I can't hang up with you because my boss is going to fire me. Like, you have that issue. So it's kind of interesting where the fraud fills in and how it affects the people on the phone. Because, we're talking about different people running companies and people that license the software, the VPs of sales doing everything. But I'm talking about the person physically connecting with the customer. That process there, you need to have the right technology in place to make that seamless so that the buyer is happy, the real buyer is happy, and that the call center person is happy to get your highest ROI out of that entire process. There's a lot of stuff in between. There's our technology, there's Convoso's technology, there's all the different stacks and different settings and all the stuff that you got to do with the integrations on both sides. But the whole goal is to make those 2 connections, the last 2 points, happy. And that's how you grow your company.
Yeah. Speed to lead.
Indeed. Well, we are coming up on we're about 13 minutes off from the top of the hour. So I think we can probably wrap it up for today. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you, of course, to Rich and Meg for taking time out of your day for this insightful discussion. We will provide a recording, as I mentioned, of this session to all of the attendees, but we'd love your feedback as you exit. So if you could fill out the short survey on your way out, it would be most appreciated. And if you'd like further information on the services provided by Anura, you can find Rich Kahn at anura.io. And you can learn more about Meg Mananian at convoso.com. So thank you both for joining us and for being part of this. And thank you again to all of our attendees. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you. It was really fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
See you later.